Hey everyone, it's Laura from the blog OurEarlyHouse.com, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 7 different freezer meals. So I did a 1-month freezer meal video, I don't know, maybe it was a couple months ago, and you guys all loved that video, so I thought I would share some new fun freezer meal ideas. So in this video, I'm gonna be doing, I'm saying 7 because it's 7 different recipes, and what I would make for my family might be 2 meals for a smaller family. So you can adjust the recipes as needed, but these recipes hopefully will give you some good meal inspiration. The best part about doing freezer meals is that you can batch cook, and then you can have some time off later in the week or on busy weeknights to where you don't have to do as much cooking. So for these recipes, you should be able to get them all done in about an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on how from scratch you make it. I show some options where I make my own dressings and my own Alfredo sauce and my own bone broth. But if you want to purchase some broth from the store and a few canned things, you should easily be able to get these meals knocked out in an hour. So this would be a great thing to do maybe on a Sunday afternoon or something to make your next week a little bit easier. All right, so let's get into these recipes. All right, so to get started with this, I made a whole chicken in my Instapot, and I will be using that in a couple of my recipes, and I'll also be using the meat stock for some recipes as well. So this very first one I'm making is a chicken bacon ranch pasta bake. So I'm starting off by frying up some bacon and making my own homemade Alfredo sauce. So for the Alfredo sauce, I'm just melting some butter and cream in a pan and letting that come to a simmer, adding in some spices. I did some Italian seasonings, some salt and pepper, and then I added in a little bit of flour just to make this thicken, let it simmer, and this makes a really easy Alfredo sauce. While my bacon was frying up, I started shredding up the chicken. I love making chicken in the Instapot to shred because it shreds so easily. So I'm just shredding that up and putting it in this bowl, and I'll be using half of this in this recipe and the other half of it in another recipe. For the ranch that I'm using this, I'm making mine homemade. If you don't want to, you can definitely just use store-bought ranch, but I'm just using some homemade yogurt, add in a lot of Italian seasoning, some salt, pepper, a little paprika, and some garlic, and this makes a really delicious ranch dressing. I got some water boiling on the stove, and I'm getting some egg noodles going for this pasta bake. You can use penne noodles, but I'm using that in a different one, so I wanted to switch it up and just use some egg noodles in this recipe. After I was finished picking all the chicken off the bones, I added the bones back into the Instapot with the meat stock, added in a little bit of vegetable scraps and some water, a little apple cider vinegar, and I got the Instapot going just so I can make some more bone broth because I'm going to be making a couple soups today, and I wasn't sure if the meat stock that I had would be enough. Now it's time to mix this all together. So I started off by putting the noodles in the bowl, some chicken, my homemade Alfredo sauce, my homemade ranch, and I added in some more chicken just because I wanted it to be enough for my family of 7. And then I just mixed it all up to make sure everything was well combined. Next, I just poured this in a 9x13 baking dish. I topped it with some bacon and some cheddar cheese. I'm putting a label and a lid on this to stick in the freezer, and then I just have to pull this out, let it defrost and bake when I am ready to eat it. All right, for the second meal, I'm doing a chicken and rice soup. So I'm starting off by dicing up some carrots, celery, and onions. Making this in my Dutch oven, so I have that heating on the stove. I added in a little bit of olive oil and added my veggies into the olive oil just to saute them. Once the veggies were sauteed, I added in a cup of brown rice. Then added in a couple of cups of the meat stock that I had left over from the chicken that I made that I'm going to be using in this recipe. I added in some spices, stirred it all up, put the lid on to let this come to a boil. Then I reduced it to a simmer until the rice and vegetables were all soft. Once everything was cooked, I added in my shredded chicken, gave it a stir, and this was done. I let it sit out to completely cool, and then that evening before I went to bed, I put it into a freezer Ziploc bag to place in the freezer, and then I'll just let it defrost and put it back in my Dutch oven to warm up when we are ready to eat it. For the third meal, I am making a venison steak soup. I am doing this all just straight in my crock pot. It only takes a couple of hours to cook through. So I am just dicing up a bunch of red potatoes. I am cutting up some venison steak, or this is actually venison backstrap, but you could use beef steak or just even chicken, whatever type of meat that you want. And then I diced up an onion and added that all to the crock pot as well. I then added in a bag of frozen mixed vegetables, some spices, and then some of my bone broth. You can see that I just pulled that out of the Instant Pot, so it's nice and hot and steamy. And then I just put the lid on this and let it cook in the crock pot while I was working on my other meals. And then just like the chicken and rice, I let this sit out until it cooled, and then I transferred it to a freezer safe bag. This fourth meal is a lasagna pasta bake. This is just something that I kind of made up. I had another meal in mind, but I ended up not having all the ingredients for it, so I just kind of winged it. So I started off by browning a couple pounds of hamburger meat and getting some noodles going on the stove. I added in some onions and garlic to my meat just to season it, and got that sauteing while I was cooking the meat. I then added in a little bit of salt and pepper and a bag of frozen spinach and mixed all that up to let it cook through. Once the meat was done and the noodles were done, I am mixing all of this just in a big bowl and basically putting all the ingredients that you would for lasagna, but this makes it to where you don't have to layer it, and it makes it easier to store in the freezer. So I did pasta sauce, noodles, the meat with the vegetables, some ricotta cheese, some cheddar cheese, and also some Parmesan cheese. This made a lot more than I was expecting, so I filled up 3 freezer bags with this. Obviously, you can cut this recipe in half, but because I do have a large family, I like to make plenty, but this will probably be 2 or 3 meals for us. All right, the next meal is my sheet pan fajitas. This is such an easy meal I love to make, and this makes a great freezer meal. So the first thing I'm doing is just dicing up a few bell peppers and an onion. Once all the veggies were chopped up, I put them into a big bowl and then I started preparing the chicken. I'm just using some chicken tenderloins for this, and I'm just cutting them up into about 1-inch pieces, and then I'll also add those into the bowl once I have them all cut up. I drizzled the chicken and vegetables with some olive oil. I added in some chili powder, paprika, cumin, some salt and pepper, and the juice of 2 key limes. I used my hands and just mixed this up really good just to get all that chicken and peppers marinating inside of the sauce and all the spices. And then I put this in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. And when I go to bake this, I will just pull it out of the bag, let it defrost, put it on a sheet pan, bake it in the oven, and then you can serve this with all your favorite fajita toppings. For the next meal, I'm doing a cilantro lime chicken. So I'm starting off by chopping up some cilantro and cutting a couple of limes in half. This is what I'm going to use to make my marinade for my chicken. In a small bowl, I added a little bit of olive oil, a few cloves of garlic, all of my cilantro, and the juice of 2 limes, some salt and pepper, and some cumin. I then added in some lime zest and just stirred all of this up to make a really delicious and flavorful marinade. I sprinkled them with some chili seasoning just to give it that chili lime flavor. And then I poured the marinade inside of the bag, zipped it closed, and then tossed it to make sure that the chicken was covered in all the marinade. And then laying this flat in the freezer, I'll just pour this onto a sheet pan or a baking dish and bake it in the oven. And then I will serve this over rice with some fresh avocados. For the last meal, I'm just making up some hamburgers. I love making up hamburgers patties in advance. It just makes it much easier on the night when we're going to cook this. So I'm dicing up some celery and onions I'm going to add into my burger mix just to make these more flavorful. I'm also adding in some Dijon mustard, a little bit of coconut aminos, and some spices, and this will make a really juicy burger. So now I'm just going to mix it all up, patty them up, and then put these in bags. And this will be an easy dinner when we're ready to either grill or if I'm just cooking them inside. And then you can top them with your favorite burger toppings and serve them with some type of fried potato or chips or something to make it a really easy weeknight dinner. hope you guys enjoyed this video and it gave you some good meal inspiration. I'll be linking some of the recipes for you guys down in the description box below if you want to check those out. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. I get out a new video every Friday. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.